everybody. Welcome to another episode here at Fast Trax Live. My name is Paul Abernathy. I'm your host. Welcome to our Wednesday night session. For many of you, this will be a shock because I told you I would be off this Wednesday, but I'm not. I'm here, and we're going to do education. Of course, if you missed tonight's live one, then you can obviously catch it on a rebroadcast because this is a two-parter here. This is a second part, and it will be possibly a third part, but you want to make sure you watch the episode from about, I guess it's over a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where we did the optional standard method for the multifamily, and we showed you how to do all that. Well, now we're going to be doing a different calculation, right? But we're going to be doing the optional method. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, look, Paul, if I'm preparing for an electrical exam, and you know, I'm known for electrical exams, but I have a mission to teach the National Electrical Code. And you know, one of those things is to make sure that you understand not only how to do what's expected on an exam, which is the standard method, and you need to know how to do that, but you also need to understand how to do the optional method. So every now and then, we give you a little bit of a break, right? We go from the heavy calcs and the standard method and trying to understand all these little elements of it. We relax and we start talking a little bit about the optional method, because I do need you to realize that you got to know how to do it. Plus, in the real world, that means out there in the trenches, chances are you're going to be doing the optional method before you would ever do the standard method. Now, it is important to understand that the reasoning that some people say they never teach the standard method because the optional method is what you're going to use in the field. The reality is you still got to know how to calculate the standard method to be able to calculate for the neutral. Why? Because in part 3, it tells you how to calculate for the neutral. It doesn't tell you how to do that in part 4, which is the optional method. So it behooves us, that's a big word for me, to understand both optional and standard, right? Well, since tonight wasn't going to be a night we taught, we're still going to give you a bit of a break. We're going to do the optional method tonight, okay? All right, so I'm going to be presenting you the values and everything that you need, and I will remind students, the Fast Track students, that if you have questions, please feel free to, based on your unit now, make sure you type them into the chat and let me know what unit you're on and what edition you're in, and we'll go check it out. Now, there are a couple things I want to talk about before we get into the calculations, okay? And this is what I realized as I was teaching the standard, the standard method utilizing the multifamily back when we did the first episode. You can go check that out. It's over on our YouTube channel. It hasn't been moved over to Fast Trax Tube to my understanding yet. I don't believe it has moved. But in there, it was a couple things that we wanted to talk about, and that was the neutral calculation. So I might as well get that out of the room right now. And this is why it's so important to understand the changes that take place to the National Electrical Code. Very important that people say, well, Paul, is it that big of a deal when we move from a 2020 to a 2023 or a 2017 to a 2020? Or if you're in one of those real backwoods areas, back in still on the 2011 or God forbid 2008 in some places like New York or whatever like that. So don't get me started on that. But it's important to understand the importance of change. And I'm going to show you why. And this is for all you students out there, because I want you to be able to recognize this. Now, in my Fast Trax program, usually I teach a certain way because I know what the code panel's intent was, even though it's lost in translation. Well, I'm going to show you what I mean tonight, because I usually teach you that when you're doing the neutral, you guys, some of you might remember this now, that when you're doing ranges and dryers, you get to apply 70%, right? That's in 220.61b, right? But what about the amount that's over 200? He's talking 200 amps. So the code typically allows for that value that's over 200 to be taken at 70%. Let me give you an example. So if I had a calculation for a neutral, for a service, and it was 250 amps, okay, of neutral load. We calculated it out. Well, the first 200 would be at 100%, so you're just going to use 200. The remaining over that, which is 50, you could take it 70%. Now, that's what it says. But here's the thing. If you have already, listen now, if you had applied the 70% to the range and the dryers and all that in your calculation for the service, then you didn't get to apply the amount over 200. Sounds odd, doesn't it? But that's what the rule was if you're in the 2020 edition versus the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code, right? I'm going to show you what I mean. So we're going to go to the code because I want to show you before we get deep into this how important it is to pay special attention to how codes change. And I'm going to do shout outs to everybody that's in the room. Everybody in the room, make sure you shout out and let me know where you are, who you're from, if you're in the program or not. Love to give you a shout out because we'll go to the chat room there and we'll chat it up a bit if you have any questions. All right, let's go to the NEC real quick. All right, so here's the NEC, and I want to show you what I was talking about. So one of the most important, so let's go to 220.61, and we're talking about the neutral real quick. I want to get this out of the way before we get into our lesson. All right, so I want to show you what it says in the 2023 edition, okay? So see right here under B, permissible reductions or permitted reductions. See right here in gray, or kind of a tan, the and. So 220.61b1 is this one. This is where you may be applying the 70% to the ranges, to the dryers, and all that stuff, right? You with me? Because we do it, we talk about it all the time. However, you also can apply the 70% to the unbalanced load that in excess of 200. And you hear me talk about this all the time, and we do this. And we've done this in the Fast Trax program as well. Well, let me show you what's different. And I got to turn my phone off, folks, because I tell you, no sooner that I get on here, I think people just start hitting me up. And they should know that on Wednesday nights, this is what I do. So leave me alone. All right, so I want you to see what this looks like in the 2020 edition. So this is the 2023, right? And you'll notice it says you can use 220.61b1. Thanks, Jesse, for liking. It says you could use 220.61b1. That means you can apply the 70% to your range, dryer calculations, and all that. But it says and. See that and? And a portion of the amount in 220.61b2. So that means you could do this part down here as well. So you get to apply them both to your overall load calculations, right? Okay. Well, I always knew this was the case, and this is the way I teach it because this was the real world, and that's what the code panel intended. But as with anything, it takes clarity because if you don't explain it, people will question it. So the 2023 code clarified this and put the and in there. But I want to show you why this is important for the 2020 people. All right, so let's go to the 2020 edition. And by the way, I'm using link for people that want to know. Oscar, thanks for liking the stream. Y'all know I like it when you like the streams. I appreciate it. It's kind of a way of saying thank you, and I appreciate you. So again, thank you for doing that. Okay, so let's go down here and look at 220.61 again. Plus your name pops up on the screen. All right, so here it is in the 2020. Check this out. It says the 70% applied to the amount in 220.61b1 or. This is so important, folks. See that word or? Or means this or that. It's totally different, but from an and, which is this and that. So at the end of the day, you either applied the 70% to your ranges, dryers, and all that in your calculation. And if you did that, you could not apply the 70% to the amount over 200 in your overall service count because you already took into account the 70% reduction for the dryer and ranges, things like that. So that's so important. But that wasn't the intent. But it takes people to submit public inputs like you, like all kinds of people, in order to get the code clarified. So in 2023, that or became an and, because it didn't make sense. Because of diversification, because of neutral loads and balancing, you should be able to use both. So in 2023, it's clear. 2020, you got to use this or that. Now, you have a choice. You can take the ranges and dryers and don't apply the 70%, take it at the full value, because that's a permissible thing. And then you, if it happens to be over 200, the amount that's over 200, you could apply the 70%, right? Or you take the 70% for the ranges and the dryers, figure that in for your calculation for the neutral, and any value that's over 200, you just got to take the full value for the neutral. You don't get to apply the allowance in B2. Does that make sense? Okay. So 2023, you can apply them both. If they're applicable, you apply them. Into 2020, you pick this one or that one. And the reason that's problematic for people is because I think we always teach you to take the 70% of your dryers and 70% of your ranges when you're doing a neutral calc. Well, the moment that you do that, in this 2020 code, B2 is off the table. You can't apply the 70% to the amount over 200. Because of that or, see how important that is? That or, so important. 2023, it's so much clearer. That's why, folks, you have to submit changes to the code for clarity reasons, all right? Okay, real quick, let's get to some chat real quick. I'll just go on and give a shout out to folks that are in the room. I want to give out a shout out. Let's see who we got up in here. We got Matt. Thanks for joining. Stoked to be here for the first time. Thanks for joining us, Matt. Alberto, thanks for coming. Freeland, thank you. Jesse, as always. Jesse, hold on. I got something for you, Jesse. Let me find it. Hold on. That's for you, Jesse. Richard, thanks for joining, Richard. I hope you got my email response. I didn't hear back. So thank you. Hopefully got that. Red Dog's in the house. Look at that, Rewire Philly boy up there near Philly, okay? He's like me, would never live in Philly, but he lives up near Philly. And I'm gonna see him at the end of the month. Hey, shout out, if any of you out there are going to the NECA convention in Philadelphia at the end of the month, look me up. I'll be at Uncle Wire's booth. Come and see me. If you're in town for that evening, you wanna go out to eat, my treat, I'll take you out to eat, okay? And it doesn't matter if 10 of you come, 15 of you come. We'll figure something out. I'll take you out to eat. I'll pick up the tab. Don't worry about it. Let's see here. Odin, out in LA. Thanks for joining, Odin. Glad to have you here. Matthew Smith, what's up? Glad you could join us. CMECP is in the house. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew, is it too late to register? I don't know. Just go to NECA's website. It's the NECA show. It's the show. It's the neatest place to be, folks, because if you want to see all the new stuff from the manufacturers, that's the place to be. You definitely want to go to the NECA. Plus, there's a lot of educational opportunities. I usually have some great speakers. I'm not speaking there. I didn't have a desire to do it this year. But I'm sure they'll still take your money, Matthew, if you're in the area. But it is definitely worth going just to see all of the manufacturers and talk to them, get samples, get little wingdings. Usually they give stuff away, but I will be there. You can come by the booth, take a picture. We can shake hands, get to meet each other. I'd love to see you. So I will definitely be at the NECA show. So that's end of this month, September 29th, 30th, 1st, and 2nd. I believe. So it's a great show. It's in Philly. Just go to NECA, N-E-C-A, and I don't know if it's NECA.org or whatever it is, but check them out. If you're in the area, it's usually worth it to go see it, okay? All right, so that's our shout outs to everybody. Anybody I miss that comes in later, I'll try to catch you the best I can. All right, so let's kind of get into our lesson tonight. We got a calculator, and we're going to go over it, and we're going to kind of try to work some things out here, and we'll discuss it, and hopefully you will understand what it is. Now, when it comes to the optional method, it is so much easier to do the optional method, so much easier, but on an exam, they know that it's easier. So chances are those are not the questions you're going to get on the exam, but you could get a piece. something could ask you something, consider the optional method or this, that. And I want to make sure that you know how to do it and you don't freak out. Okay. But like I said, in the real world, chances are you'll probably use the optional method all the time. Okay. All right. So let's go on and go to the lesson real quick. And again, if you have any question from your unit, any of your Fast Trax units you're working on, that's what this show is about. It's if you have other questions, feel free to submit them to paulabernathy.com. I'm more than happy to try to answer those. But all the questions here are for Fast Trax students. And I need you to let me know the unit you're in, the question, maybe the competency review question you're on, and we'll go look at it in order to clarify it for you if you need it. I think the course does a pretty good job of making things clear, but in case you do, you know how to do it. Okay, just go on in and type it in and let me know, and we'll go look at it. Okay, before we end up tonight. All right, so this is what we're looking at. So this is out of Unit 11. Now this unit is actually in the 2023 edition, okay, of the Fast Trax, and I don't believe it changes from the 2020. It's still the same examples, still same information. Hopefully you can see it okay. So we'll kind of go. And what I've done is I have already worked out a sheet. Jamie, thanks for giving us a like here. I didn't see you in the chat, so give a shout out. Let us know where you're from, Jamie. I actually filled out our form. Now, people say, what am I talking about when it comes to the form? I get people that ask that all the time. Okay, so I want to show you the form that you can get in the Fast Trax program. Now, a lot of times in our program, it's an image, so save the image and then print it. But also in the 2020, 2017, I've actually loaded them into the program. I have not for the 2023 because the ones that are in the program, you save it as an image and it prints out pretty good. But if students in the 2023 want me to actually put the PDF version up there, I will do it. That's not a problem. I just download it from the program. But that's up to you. I'm more than happy to accommodate. But if you're in the 2020 or 2017 Fast Trax, then it's up there. It's in your console. Okay, so if you need it. All right, so what I wanted to do is show you what this looks like. So let me kind of go back over here. All right, so for all of you that are in the program, this is old hat for you. You're familiar with it. So here's the form. Now, a lot of people ask us about these forms. Well, they say, well, why do I want to use the form? I can't take it into the exam. It's because you're learning. It's because this form is more than just filling in the blanks. There's code references on here to remind you of all of the different steps. Now, why is that important? Because at any given time on an exam, you could be asked any part of the step-by-step process. They might simply want to know what the range contribution is using the optional method. A simple question, but you need to understand how to do it, and we don't want you to freak out. So this form is a step-by-step form, and you simply fill it in as you work down the form. That's simple. Now, the next question that people ask me is people that are not in our program, they say, how can I get this form? You can't. This is only available to Fast Trax students. So sorry, but there is perks with membership, I guess you should say. All right, but I'm sure there's other ones available out there as well that you can grab hold of. These aren't anything really special. It's just systematically breaking it down for you. And we'll go through, and I have actually taken one and I have mocked it up so we can follow along. We'll try to see if we can't follow along a piece by piece in the process, okay? So anyway, here's the optional method right here. And you notice that it gives reference to 220.84. Real important. So let me talk about that real quick, because before we get into these calcs, I get those types of questions from people. So I want to make sure that we talk about why we're using 220.84 versus 220.82, okay? So let me go back to the NEC here. And let's go on and get down to 220. All right, so let's go to 220.82 real quick. So when people say, if you're using the optional method, what's the difference between 220.82 and 220.84? Well, 220.82 is when you're doing a calculation and you're using the optional method for an individual dwelling unit, okay, which you're perfectly capable of doing. So I can go from my service and multifamily building, I can go from my service out to a dwelling unit, and I can size all that based on the optional method, okay? And so that is basically what 220.82 is all about, right? So it gives you all the parameters right here that you have to follow. Again, there's a part for your general loads, and then there's the part for your heating and cooling. And you know what? Pretty straightforward. We've talked about that before. You just follow the steps. Now, when it comes to 3 or more dwelling units, now is when we're saying, look, we're not doing the individual dwelling unit. Now we're doing a service for multiple dwelling units. Okay. Well, when that comes into play, we're going to go down here and we're going to be right here. And this is where you see it, multifamily dwellings. And it tells you right in here, okay, 3 or more dwelling units, right? So could I use the standard method and do all this? Absolutely. But the optional method is 100% of the time going to yield a smaller service, yet adequate service, still adequate, but it's going to yield lower results based on historically how it's been done, right? So, and you still get some hefty demands that you're allowed to apply in the optional. That's why it works. In this case, we get to use a big table to do this process. So I just want to make sure that everybody's clear on the difference between 220.82, which is the allowable optional method for an individual dwelling unit. And then, of course, 220.84 is designed for multifamily dwellings, 3 or more. Okay, so we got that out of the way? Okay, pretty straightforward and easy to understand. All right, so let's get back to our lesson then. All right, so here's our lesson, and we will go back and forth to our sheet and work our calculation. All right, and we'll go back and forth to the code as well, because we want to make sure we follow all these things in here. All right, so let's answer our question. So what is it here? Hopefully you can see it. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to answer these 4 questions, okay? And you're going to see the importance of why we have to know how to do a standard calculation, even though I just told you we're doing an optional, okay? All right, so here's what we've got. All right, so let's kind of look at the variables we have. We know it's a 12240 volt. We know it is 3-wire, single phase. Okay, and it's 6-unit multifamily dwelling. Okay, all right. So it's a 6-unit multifamily dwelling. We're doing the, we're going to follow and answer all the questions here, and we're going to be doing. It looks like we're going to be doing the minimum rating in amperes for the service over current device. So we'll be doing just the device, and then we're going to be sizing the conductor. In this case, it says that it is THWN, okay? So something you'll notice here is that it's not THWN-2, right? And so this is THWN just period, okay? So that's going to make a difference for us when we do this calculation here a little bit. So, and then we're going to be looking at the neutral, right? We'll do that in red, and then, of course, we're going to be sizing the copper grounding electrode conductor, okay? And I didn't tell you what type of electrode it is, so we should know. Let's see here. Juan says, I got home, looked at my unit 3 test. Yeah, I didn't do good, 68%. I'm not home right now, but I do remember the question I got wrong. Yep, so, by the way, anybody that's in the program, when you get below 70%, you're going to have to redo the unit and resubmit. Why? Because repetition is a good thing. It really makes you hone in on it, okay? So again, Juan, don't fret, man. It's all good. I guarantee you'll do better the second time around. I promise you will, okay? Now, I will tell you, we don't want to go over all of the ones you missed, and you're not home, so it's not going to be to do that because then it's kind of pointless. You got so close. I really want you, okay, to go and make sure you take it again because you're so close. Now, another thing, folks, I know you will. Also, folks, in our program, you should be striving for 85% and higher. Anytime you get something in the 70s, I'm going to give you the answers, but you really need to take the time. And I probably should come back to me when I'm talking like this. I'm sorry. I really want you to take the time to go back and see why you got the question wrong. And if you still don't understand, even after I share it with you, that's the perfect time to bring the questions to Wednesday nights, because you just don't get it. And I want to make sure you leave there understanding it. That's important to me. But I don't want to give you all the answers so that you go back and you end up getting good grades and then you didn't learn anything. You just regurgitated what I told you. Okay, so be very selective in asking your questions, but I want you to ask them, because if there's something that really you're struggling with, then I want to be able to answer it for you. All right, so let's get back to the lesson. All right, so what we've got to do here is start looking at all the values here. All right, so what does it say in the code? What is our first step that we have to follow with the code? All right, so let's go to the NEC before we even get started in this. So let's look down here and let's see what we've got here. So here is how we're going to do the calculated right here. Okay, we're going to come up with the calculated loads. Now we are going to use this table right here. Okay, this table 220.84 optional demand factors for 3 or more dwelling. We're going to be using this. And in our case, we have no house loads, but to avoid people's confusion, the house loads, as you see, you basically are going to do what? All right? Calculate those in the standard method. And you're going to add those to the value that you get on what we're just now getting ready to do in the optional method. That's why, again, it's so important that you still know how to do the standard method, because if you were doing a multifamily building and you had house loads like parking lot lighting or maybe common laundry area, whatever, you got to remember that you do that under the standard method, okay? Okay, all right? And that's in addition to what we're getting ready to do tonight, okay? So important to remember those things, folks. All right, so with that said, what are we using here? All right, let's go down. So we're gonna be following these steps right here, and we'll go back and forth to our material. And then I also have the sheet that we'll fill out. Don't worry, it's a lot of crap I got going on here, but hopefully it'll all work out. All right, now the first things first, here's why it's easy. It says the calculated load to which demand factors of table 220-84 apply shall be include the following. Number 1, it's still going to be 3 VA per square foot for general lighting and general use receptacles. Whoo, that's easy, right? So you remember when we did the standard, it was still based on the square footage, right? It was 3 VA per square foot. The good news, doesn't change, okay? Doesn't change. Hey, Michael, welcome to the stream. All right, so it doesn't change. That's a good thing, right? So what are we going to do? Now, the one thing we have to remember here is that we have 6 units. Never forget we have 6 units, okay? Never forget that we have that. Okay, so what are we going to do on our form? The form that I showed you guys. All right, we're going to go to the form. All right, so here's the first one in the form right here. Okay, I've already filled it in. There's the 1350, and it's 6 units. So it's 24,300. Don't trust me. Grab that calculator. Do 1350. It's 3 VA times 1350 equals 4,050 times 6. That's 24,300. That's the very first box in that form. Now, for anybody that came in late, this form is exclusive to, ours is anyway, is exclusive to our Fast Trax students. So again, don't nobody hit me up for this form. It's only available to the students. But the same concept's going to apply. We're just showing you a form. And if you look here, you will see on the form that it says 220.84C1. Well, if you look back at the code, that's what we got it. There is C and there's C1. So that's the first part of it. All right, so the next part in our optional calculation is, and we haven't even done a whole lot yet with the information on the screen that we shared, all the values. We're just doing the square footage now. The next thing is you see that it says that you're going to take 1,500 VA for each 2-hour 20 amp small appliance brand circuit and laundry circuit covered in 210.11 C1 and C2. Well, 210.11c1 tells you had to have at least 2 small appliance branch circuits, and 210.11c1 says you have to have at least 1 laundry. Now this is a multifamily building. Now you could not have the laundry if there was, say, a laundry facility there for all of the tenants, right? And that'd probably be on the house loads, right? In our case, it doesn't say that. And on your exam, if it's not going to say that, then guess what? It gets added into the value. Now, if the units don't have a laundry because a laundry facility is provided to all the tenants on site, then you get to leave off that $1,500. But in our case, we can't leave it out because ours doesn't say anything that excludes it. Doesn't say anything about a laundromat on site providing it to all the people. So we have to have it. And you notice that the optional method says, give me that $1,500. Okay. All right. So we're going to go back to ours and we're going to fill all that in. All right. So pretty straightforward here. The second one down here, as you can see, it says small appliance and laundry, which is step 2 and step 3. Okay. Right there. Step 2 right here. And step 3 right here. I already filled these out for you. All right. And so here we did 1,500 times 2 because a minimum of 2, right? Where do we get that? It says right there, 210.11c1. So 1,500 times 2 times 6, 18,000, right? So that's the contribution for all of our small appliance branch circuits for all 6 of these units. Okay. All right. So let's go back to the lesson. All right. Oh, we got to finish the other one. So the laundry, 1,500 again times 1 times 6 equals 9,000. And that's what we get in line 3. Little words of advice. Pay very close attention if you are studying for an exam. Now, not all my students are exam prep. A lot of my students are simply studying the National Electrical Code. Okay, you don't always have to be. Our programs are not just for exam prep. It's important to remember that in the real world, you may have more small appliance than 2. You may have more laundry than 1. Okay, so one of those things is, again, it's one of those things where just be aware of an exam question, because an exam question might have 3 small appliance branch circuits, 2 laundry circuits. So be aware of that, okay? Just be aware of it, okay? So here is the minimums, okay? Alberto says that Jay invited him to watch his live. Dude, who wants to watch Jay when you can watch me? I'm just saying, okay? You know, okay. I was going to say something funny, but I'm not going to say it. All right, let's go back. Okay. All right, so we have got our floor area. We took care of our VA per square foot. We took care of our 2 small appliance branch circuits, and we took care of our laundry, okay? All right, what's next? All right, let's go back to the code. All right, so this part of the code right here, this one right here, this one and this one are taken care of. Done. We already put that on our form. What's next? Well, check it out. We want to get the nameplate rating of the following. Now, this is important because this is what's different than the standard method. And it always has been like that when doing the optional method is I'm simply going to take the nameplate value. So I have to go and accumulate all this nameplate information, okay? So we're going to take the values and we're going to do that. We're going to plug all that in for ours. And remember, it's 6 units. So everything that we do here is times 6. You with me? Because it's 6 units. All right, let's go back to the lesson real quick. Okay, so the very first one that we'll see on this list, we'll just go to we're going to go to the very first one. Let's go to the code real quick and let's pick which ones we want to do. All right, let's do this one first, A. Okay, A. All appliances that are fastened in place, that would be like the water heater, the dishwasher, the in-sink waste disposer, okay? Those are all the appliances that are fastened in place, right? permanently connected or located to be on a specific circuit. Why is that important? Well, everybody keeps asking me, Paul, how do I address things like electric vehicles? How do I deal with that? Well, that's an example of a specific circuit. And you're going to take the nameplate from that specific circuit. And that's going to be in your math here. So for anybody that's ever asked, Paul, how do I deal with the EV? That's how you deal with the EV. One of the misconceptions that people have is that if they don't figure out a way to include the load here, that they get to omit the load. That's not true. The load is still there and we have to account for it. So the code just does a pretty good job. Under the standard method, it does this under 220.14a, right? That's where it gets you, right? And in the 2023 edition, now we have a special listing for adding the EV vehicles. It's like 7,200 watts or the nameplate, whichever is larger, okay? But prior to that, we just used 220.14a for a specific load. Well, here in the optional method, this is where we're going to account for those specific circuits to a specific load, okay? Does it make sense? So if you ever wondered where to insert it, this is where you insert it. Okay, so in our case, all we have is, let's go back and see what we got. So in our case, we've got a water heater, a dishwasher, an in-sink waste disposer, okay, of those for item number 3A. So let's add those to our form. Let's go to the form. All right, so here's the form, and I want to add those. So there you see them on the screen. 4,200. I'm going to check my math because, again, I could have rushed myself, you know. As people will tell you on TikTok, Paul's not perfect. He might be an angry little man, but he's not perfect. All right, so 4,200 times 6 is 25,200. So that's right for the water heaters, okay? Remember, there's 6 of them. Next, we had those dishwashers, and those dishwashers were 1.2 kW, so it's 1,200 VA. You know I love to get it to VA. Just get it there as quick as you can. So that's 1,200 times 6, and that is right. That should be, hold on, I don't know if that's right. 1,200 times 6. Ooh, where are we at here? That's the dishwasher. Did I skip? What do we see wrong in this calculation, folks? What do you guys see wrong? Beautiful. We're going to work it. We're going to work it while we're here. Perfect. Maybe I did that on purpose. Maybe not. All right, so let me see here. There you go. There you go. Oh, Roberto, there you go. So what we're going to do, hold on, is we're going to work this thing. And let's see if I can make it so that I can do that. Let's see if I can do that. I want to do that. I thought I had it set up to do that because I like to do this while we're working it. But let's see here. Let's see if it lets me do this real quick, folks. Hold on. I thought I had it set up, but I guess I didn't. Okay. Yeah, I didn't. So bear with me. I will get it set up. Y'all know I will. All right, so let's do this here. Pays to do this stuff ahead of time, but sometimes I run out of time and I don't have the ability to work on stuff. Let me move. Oops, hold on. There we go. Let's move in and see if we can get a little more space here, folks. A little more space. Hey, that's why it's a live session, folks. You wanted something that was perfect all the time, and you got to go somewhere else, okay? All right, let me see if I can get a little bit more space on this here for you. Okay, all right, so perfect. We get to work this thing together, all right? All right, so let's work this thing down, and we'll change our numbers and see what we get. All right, so let's look back at our lesson real quick. Okay, so our lesson says that we have 4,200 is fine. The dishwasher, okay? Safety squints. I can't help it. I can't see, bro. All right, so dishwasher is 1.2, so it's 1,200 times 6, 7,200. Okay, so let's go back to our PDF. All right, and let's do this one, and let's see if we can't edit it. 7,200. Perfect. And I don't know why it's not giving me the same text because I filled this all in earlier. And I don't know why it's not using the same text. Anyway, it looks different. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're doing this bad boy on the fly. All right, next, which one are we covering? And this is what you should be doing on your own form. Okay. Next is the disposer. Now, disposer was a 3rd horsepower. So before we can do anything, what do we have to do in order to find out what the VA is for this disposer? I know we see a value here, but that kind of already did it for you, but I don't want to do that, right? Edit the bottom as well. I don't know what you mean by edit the bottom as well. I don't know what you mean. I'm still got more to do, so there's nothing I can edit right now. So I don't even know what that means. Sorry. You're gonna have to be more explicit in your question. I don't know what edited the bottom as well means. Okay. So anyway, let's go to the NEC real quick. No, let's go to the lesson real quick. So we'll go to the lesson. Okay. And so in this lesson, it is a 3rd horsepower, right? I'll click on this so you can see it. 3rd horsepower. So where do we go? We got to go to the NEC. So let's go to the NEC. And in the NEC, I got to go, where do I go to get the FLC of a motor? Y'all know where to go. All right. So we're going to go to 430. And let's see, 430. And we're going to go down to 430.248, right? Right? There you go. 430 to 248. So let's go down into the tables. It's not letting me get to the tables. So what I'll do is I'll just click there. A little bit of a flaw with link, but there we go. All right, so here's the table, 248. We see here. So ours was 120, right? So we're going to be in the 115. And people always say this to me. Well, Paul, your question says 120. But over in the table, it says 115. You got to read this part. See, it says the currents used, it shall be based, or the voltage range shall be 110 to 120. So the 115 is going to be okay for the 120. When we come here, we're going to use the 115 for any 120 application. Makes sense? All right. So in that case, we're going to go down here and we're looking for 3rd horsepower. So here's the 3rd horsepower right here. And that is 7.2 amps. All right, how do we get the values when we have 7.2 amps? We take the value that's in the question. In this case, the dishwasher was 120 volts. So I'm going to take what? 7.2 times, all right? Oh, watch what we're doing here. Our question, this is beautiful. Our question has the dishwasher at 120, does it not? Right? At 120. So let's come back. I always tell you, take what's in their value that they give. All right. So let's go back to the lesson. This is why I wanted to do this live. Let's go back. Here's the lesson. So in this lesson, the dishwasher, this one's 120. Notice how everything else is 115, but it's 120. Use the value they give you. So 7.2 times 120 is 864, right? Why is that important? Let's go back to the worksheet. The worksheet has it as what? 828. That would have been the case if it was what? 7.2 times 115? That would have been 828. But we're going to use the voltage that's been given to us, okay? Now, that was done when we figured this out. I just don't know why the numbers aren't matching the same style, but this was already part of my lesson plan. That's why this is editable, right? Why is it a 10 amp dishwasher, Jesse? Are we doing dishwashers? Oh, you're talking about, well, we're all for dishwashers now because we did 1200 kW, right? And we did that at, it was already give us the value. So we don't have to do anything times the voltage. It already gave us the kW, okay? All right, all right. So it's all good. It's all good, all good. It's all good. I love y'all. Interactive. Interactive. That's what I want. For anybody out there that's not familiar with our Wednesday night, this is what I usually say. If you don't like how I'm doing it, piss off. I can promise you the Fast Track students appreciate it because we used to do these in private. Now we get to do it in public, okay? And I'm just as offensive in private as I am in public, so don't worry about it. All right, so let's go back. Good, because we want to be able to edit these things. So we're going to go in here and work this on the fly. So right here, it is what? Okay, hold on here. Let me get in here and edit it. So let me make sure I get it right. 1200. Oh no, 7.2 times 120. Y'all should be doing this with me. 864. All right, so that's 864. And why it's not bolding it out, folks, I'm sorry. Not sure what's going on with that. Okay, everybody feel good with that? All right, that's what's in our form, okay? That's what's in our form. So that means this number has to change. So let's see here. 864 times 6 is what? We got 6 of them, right? 864 times 6 equals 5,184. Well, I don't know where they got 10,800 from, or maybe that was planned that way. And usually I let the student do the calculations. But if it was 828 times 6, we know that doesn't equal it either. So did you catch it? Or is that what you were talking about, maybe? Who was it? Who was it? Alberto? Maybe that's what you were talking about. Probably what you were talking about. All right, so we have to change this value. So let's do it. All right, so I'm going to change it. All right, remember we're doing the 2023 edition, so could be slightly different than what's in your 2020. Okay. All right, so let's do this here. So what is it? 864 times 6 is 5,000. Let's do, am I going to put commas? Yeah, I haven't been doing it, but I will. Can't see it, but I'm going to do it. 5,184. Okay. Oh, thank you, Alberto. All right, so I'll do that, and let's bold that. Okay. Okay. You're pretty sure it is? Well, that's not what's on mine. And what did I tell you? I told you to use what they give you. Okay. So if we go back to the lesson, and they give it to you as 120, then use it as 120, okay? Because on an exam, they're basing the answers on what they give you, okay? So I'm going to be using the 120, right? But even if that's the case, Alberto, that 10,000 was way off. You agree? Wasn't even close, okay? All right, so next, let's go to the next. So anyway, so we've got now, let's see here, go back to our sheet. And we've got all these values here. We've got everything. So we're down that far. Okay, what's next? That's next. All right, so now let's go back to our lesson. Hopefully you're filling out your form as well. So let's go back to the lesson. What's next? All right, so we've taken care of the water heater. We've taken care of the dishwasher. We've taken care of the in-sink. Maybe I shifted. You're saying maybe I shifted here. Let's see. Could be. All right, well, let's go. Y'all see, y'all are getting me totally off. And I don't want to get off. So let's look at it. You say they're shifted. All right, well, the first one, okay. Alberto, you're distracting me away from the lesson. Okay, this isn't shifted. This is on your screen. Floor area, 1350. Range, 10.6. Water heater, 4.2. Dishwasher, 1.2. Still says 120 beside it. In sink, waste disposer, 115. I don't think they're off. Okay. I don't, mine's not shifted. Okay. So everyone seems to be in line. So I'm not sure what we're talking about here. All right. So let's go back here and make sure that we haven't shifted here. So the first one, that's correct. The second one is correct. Third one is correct. This, let's see here. The water heater should be 4,200 times 6, right? So that's this one. 1,200 times 6 is 7,200. Okay, that's right here. That's this one right here. Okay. The disposer should be right here. That should be 864. Again, take what is in. Jose, I don't see it. Everything looks in line on this form. I don't see any shifting. Okay, so please, let's stay on target because we got to get done. I don't want to be here all night. All right, so the next one is this one, 864 times 6, and that is the 5,184. So that looks like that's in line with this one. Okay, that's in line here. All right, that's in this line here. And it looks like this one's in line here. Right? And this one's in line here. Okay, looks like they're all in line to me. All right, so the next one, let's do clothes dryers. So we're gonna go back. So first, let's go to the NEC real quick and make sure that we're back on track in the NEC. Oh, while we're here though, folks, while we are back here, we might as well go on and get those other two values for the other motors that we're gonna need later. We might as well get them while we're here. So if you go on down here and we say, okay, what were the other motors that we have? It looks like we have an air handler, which is also a 3rd horsepower. So that one's easy. So that is 7.2. Okay. And let's see, what's the other one is 1/6 horsepower. We're already here, so we might as well get that. So that one, we go back to the NEC. And that's a 1/6, and that's right here. And that looks like that's 4.4. Okay. So we're going to use that. 4.4. Okay. All right. Just kind of getting the numbers while we're already there. All right. So what we want to do at this stage is we're going to now go back and we're going to start working. We're going to do the electric dryers. Let's get that over with. All right. So let's go back to the optional method. And now on the form, we're going to work on the dryers. But where is it in the code? So let's go back to here. All right, real quick. All right, we've done this one. So we've done this one, we've done this one, we've done the nameplate, we did the appliances, done. Now we're gonna get the ranges, wall-mounted ovens, counter-mounted cooking units. Okay, let's do that one. Let's just go in row. So even though my form kind of goes out of order, we'll just go on and do the range, get that over with. All right, so looking back at our example on the lesson, what is our range? All right, well, it said take the nameplate, right? So, and I think what you're talking about is maybe the rows were moved. Is that what you meant? They might have been moved or something like that. It could have been what you mean, but I don't know. All right, so let's go look and see. What is our range? Our range is 10.6. So that's 10,600 VA, right? That's what our range would be. All right, well, since it said take the nameplate, we're going to go to our form, and we're a little out of sync on my form. We're down here at the range, which is right here. Okay, this one right here. And so there's the 10.6 right there, times 6 of them, and hopefully that matches that number. But if it doesn't, guess what we're going to do? We're going to fix it, right? That's why we're using these forms, and that's why you should be fixing the form. So 10,600 times 6 is 63,600. All right, well, that one's back on track. So, whoa, we did that one okay. So that's what that value is. So that's good. We write that down. Remember, we're taking the nameplate. That's it, right? All right, what's next? All right, let's see here. What have we all knocked out here? We knocked out the range. Highlight that. We knocked out this floor area one. We already did that. We did the in-sink waste disposer. Got it. Now, electric clothes dryer. All right. And remember, what did it say? All right, well, let's go to the NEC. It says right here, it says clothes dryers that are not connected to the laundry branch circuit specified in item 2. Okay, so it's not part of the laundry circuit. And trust me, if it was 30 amps, it's not going to be, obviously. So we got to take that dryer. Now, again, it's nameplate. Now, does anybody remember what's different between that and the standard method? So the standard method, our electric clothes dryer that's in this lesson right here would have to be what? 5,000, right? Even though the nameplate is 4, for the standard method under 220.54, it would have to be what? It would have to be 5,000, right? Okay, so we get to use the nameplate value, right? Okay, so using the nameplate value, we're just going to use the 4,000. So let's go back over to our PDF that I filled out. All right, so this one is right, 4,000, and it's 6 units. Okay, so let's check our math. And let's go 4,000 times 6, 24,000. And ours does have 24 right here, okay? All right, so we already got all of these values, right? We did everything. Make sense? Okay, so the next thing that we want to look at is we got to go back and say, okay, is there anything else that we're missing? Now, is one important thing I want to point out in the NEC here is I lumped the water heater under the appliance because it's just easier for me. But if you get confused, water heater does have its own separate thing. So it's the same thing. Either it's an appliance or it's still in here, and you're just going to take the water heater's nameplate. In our case, we had the value for our water heater. It was 4.2 kW, 4,200 watts. Okay, so there you go. All right, so we've added that. So now we have covered everything in here, everything for the small appliance and laundry. We've covered the nameplate, and then we've covered each one of these individual items. Now, before we move even further on, I want to give you some other insight for your exam, because we talked about the lines and different elements and whether you use 115 or 120. I want to make it very clear. And it's important. This is important. This is why we did it this way. And this is why there's only one of them in there that it's 120. Are you okay? Are you ready? And I didn't want to do this earlier and get everybody confused, that type of thing. The dishwasher, for example, at 120, is trying to look at this and say, look, you need to use what they give you, right, in the calculation. Okay, and I think what I'm going to do what Alberto said is important, because I did something and I didn't want him to give it away, and he already gave it away. I wanted you to realize that if they give you a value on the exam, you use it, right? Now, what critical mistake did I make? It's already been mentioned here many times. It's the dishwasher that is 120. It's the in-sink waste disposer that is 115. So back at the form, how quickly can we transpose and get it wrong? Very quickly. What should the answer be for the disposer? And what did I put? Okay. Important thing to remember is whatever they give you on your exam, use it. And that's the only way I could do this demonstration, because it was already printed this way and I can't change the numbers. But I wanted to kind of throw it out that way, right? But you're absolutely right, Alberto, and I didn't want to get bogged on it because I wanted to get past it. But you're absolutely right, all right? Now, let's go back and get rid of all of our edits. You ready? All right. So here you go. Here you go. They're not out of sync. I read them and used different numbers because I want to prove a point. You need to use the values. And why is that important? Because if that in-sync waste disposer said 120 and you still went to the back of 430.248, okay, then that would be a problem, right? Because you want to use the values that are on the stuff that they give you in the exam. So I would have taken that 7.2 and I would have done it by 120 because that was what was on the exam. Now ours luckily is not. And that's why you see me doing all this filling in. Let's fix it. Back here, disposer is really what? 7.2 times, what does it say for the disposer? 115. That is 828, okay? That's exactly why this was 828, okay? And that's exactly why this, and somebody already calculated it for me, but I'm more than happy to do it again. So 828 times 6, 4968. Much different than the 10,000 it was there, but 4,968, okay? Makes sense? So now let's look at this value. 1,200 times 6, that is still 7,200. Does anything else in here that we need to change? Okay. There you go, Alberto. Perfect. And I didn't mean to cut y'all off earlier. I want to keep moving because I wanted to go with the narrative. If you see 120, I can't change that's something that I can't change, folks. I'll let you know this. We add content, and I'll let y'all in a little secret. I'll let you see it. Up here, you see this little, this little thing right here? This allows me to add content, and sometimes I add content to our courses. This stuff I'm not allowed to edit. That's copyright information. So the only way, and that's why this was highlighted from the beginning, the only way that I can prove a point and lead you down some kind of lesson is by using what's in front of me. And so I had no choice. But it's important, and Alberto saw it, and I can't remember who else saw it, and Jose, who he said, never mind, keep going. Again, I did. They weren't out of order. They weren't offline. I had no other way to prove a point. Again, do whatever they give you on your exam. If this was a in-sync waste disposer and they gave it to you as 120, please use 120, okay? That's the whole point, okay? I know I'm redundant, and I know I'm repetitive, and I know people hate it, but I have to keep doing this, and this is just how I teach. I'll tell you one thing, and then we'll come back and clear it. I just want you to be always thinking about the possibilities, right? Okay, all right, so let's go back. So are we okay with all the values that we see right now to this point? Everybody feel good about it? Okay, everybody give me a thumbs up. Hey, Russ, I didn't see you come in. James, if I didn't see you, welcome. And also, I'm glad y'all don't get offended. Please don't get offended when I'm rushing along and I'm trying to do that. It's because I've already have an agenda of what I need to do, and that wasn't the right time for me. But welcome to the stream. All right, so we're back on track, you think? All right, so let's add up all these numbers. Let's see what we get. So before we go off, let's go real quick back to the code and see if there's anything else that we need to include here, okay? Because we've covered everything. So let's see here, the lesson. We've now covered the dryer, right? So that's done. So we've covered all of this. Let's go back to the NEC and see if there's anything else. What do y'all think? All right. Hey, what's up, David? Thanks for joining. All right, so we covered 1, we covered 2, we covered 3. We did a little mini lesson in here, which can probably confuses people, but anyway, we did. The next is a nameplate amperes and kW rating of all permanently connected motors, not included in item 3. So if you have some other motor in your calculation, so if that throws you, they throw some other motor in here, you have to account for it. So you're just simply going to take the nameplate amperage, okay, from the nameplate amperage, or the kVA rating of the permanently connected motor, and you're going to include it. You just need to add it in, okay? Get it into the mix, okay? And then the last one is this one. The larger of the air conditioning load or the fixed electric space heating loads, okay? It's the larger. So this is what's a beautiful thing, folks, about this one, okay? So the beautiful thing about this one in the optional method is we ain't got to worry about that 25% for the largest motor crap. We ain't got to worry about, looking at the heat versus AC and then doing the, if the non-coincident load is it. We ain't got to worry about all that crap in 220.60, okay? That's why everybody loves the optional method. It's like, I ain't got to worry about all that. All I got to do is see which is bigger, the heat or the AC. And I take whatever is the larger. That's easy. That's a no-brainer, right? So let's go back to the lesson. And we already did the math earlier, didn't we? We went and looked at what our actual FLC is of these different motors, so we ought to be able to do this math pretty quick, right? All right. Again, sorry I'm dragging it all out, but I want to make sure I cover my little points. I've got little notes that I make sure I cover. All right. All right. So heat versus AC, which is larger? All right. Well, here's the heat. Well, the heat is 2 banks of 3 kW. All right. Well, what is that? That's 6 kW. 6,000, right? But how many units do we have? That's what we got to remember. We don't want to lose sight. How many units do we have? But if we're going to pick the AC versus heat, let's just go with 1 unit to determine which one we're going to use. This makes it easy, right? All right, so 6,000. But remember, that heat is also going to be using that air handler to blow it around, right? So we have to incorporate that in it as well. So we got to go on and let's convert these real quick. It's all these motors. So remember, this one is 1/3. Remember what we got earlier? I believe that 1/3 is 7.2, right? Somebody double check me. 7.2. So 7.2 times 115 is 828. We did that earlier. Okay, that was part of my little lesson there. Okay. And that is the VA, right? 7.2, excellent. Thank you, Alberto. And then we got the other one, which was 1/6 horsepower. And we did that earlier, and that was 4.4, I think. Alberto, double check that for me. So it's 4.4 times 115. Again, you remember that lesson earlier, use what they give you. And that's 115. And that is what? I believe that is, let's see, 4.4 times 115 is 506. So I'm going to write that down, 506. So 828 and 506. We'll need these later, okay? All right. So let's go and start doing some calculations here. So 6,000 is the heat plus that 828 for that air handler, okay? Right? So 6,000 plus 828 equals 6,828. So that's our heat with the actual blower contribution, okay? So that's that. So let me write that down. 6,828 VA. So that's the heat and its associated contribution, which is you're obviously at the same time that air handler is going to be blowing that air around, okay? All right, so AC now. Well, the AC is going to be using that air handler. So we know we're going to be doing that 828. We know where the condensing fan, we already calculated that out as 506. Remember how we did that? We took the 4.4 times the voltage, and that gave us the VA. The only one we need left is that air conditioning compressor. And now we have to look at it and go, okay, that was the only one we didn't look up when we went back there. Why? Because I used that as a little lesson again to go look it up. Hammer it home. Alberto's probably already gone looking it up. Jose's probably already gone looking it up. Let's go look that one up together. Again, for those that came in late, this is how you look up the horsepower. All right. So we're going to go to the NEC. I'm going to go to 430.248. Okay. Again, I am very repetitive, but I want to make sure I'm hammering these things home. And not everybody's going to like my style of teaching. I get it. I am not here to appease everybody. So again, there's many other, Mike Holt's great. Ryan Jackson's wonderful. Many other educators. I encourage you to seek them out. They do a great job. All right, so here's where we're at. And we're going to be right here. And this is single phase right here. Okay. And we're going to be at 3 horsepower at 230. All right. So now what we've got to do is we've got to move this over a little bit. Okay. So here's our table and we're at, let's see here. It's 3 horsepower. So it's right here. And that looks like that is going to be 17 amps FLC, right? There you go. Looked it up already. Thank you, Alberto. So we have 17 at 230, all right? So let's come back to the lesson real quick. So I'm going to do 17 times what? 230, okay? Now, I know there's people out there that'll say, well, why won't I use 240? Everywhere else in there uses 240. Why am I using 230? Because you're using what they gave you, okay? All right, so let's do 17 times 230, and that is 3,910, okay? So I'm gonna write that down, 3,910, okay? With me? Plus the sum of the air handler's VA, plus the sum of that condensing fan motor's VA. So 3,910, and you probably already figured that there's no way it's going to be more than the heat. You probably already figured that, and many people just stop right there. But we're going to do it. So 3,910 plus 828 plus 506, that is 5,244. It is less than the heat, which was 6,828. So you forget the AC. You're simply going to go with the heat because that is the larger, right? So on our form, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take that, and that should be 6,828 times 6. That should be 40,968. Let's see if that's what we got. All right. So here's our form, filled it out. I don't think I give you any more tests at this point. I think I just give you the regular values. I don't think we have any more testing you here. All right, so there you go. So there's the 6828 times 6. Now, the beautiful thing about this form, again, is that it kind of tells you all of that in the form. So it really walks you through it. So for you students out there that are really going through it, the form is the best thing to use when you're walking through these pieces, okay? All right, so that's all our values. So now, are you all with me? So let's add up all of these values, okay? So let's add up and see if we're right here. Let's add up all of these first. So let's go and add up these together, see what we get. So I'm going to do 24,000 plus 18,000. Do it with me. Plus 9,000 plus that 25,200 plus 7,200 plus 4,968. That's the one we used as our example. Plus 24,000 plus 63,600 plus, and what is our other value that we want to add there? 40,968. Okay, so you should get 217,236. All right, folks, haven't we been editing all this, and haven't I been jumping around and changing numbers? Do you think that that was a mistake, or do you think that I didn't do it on purpose? How many of you know me? Okay, let me show you. Ready? Ready? That's your value, okay? See that value right here? That's the total of all of this that we did over here, right? If all that other stuff that I gave you wasn't set up to, hold on here, I shifted my screen here, hold on. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to shift it on you. Sorry, bro. All right, there. If all of that wasn't the case, why does that number come up to what we totaled? See, I had to change the numbers but I didn't change that total. Why? Because it's all part of the lesson. And I hope I didn't make a calculated error in trying to show you all those things. But I try to give you as much as I can in every episode. And I wanted to show you how you do that 120, how you use what's given to you, how you would use 115. Hopefully you learned. All right, so you see our numbers. Even though I changed, me and you together, we changed these numbers right here. Okay, this 7,200. And we changed this 4,968. Miraculously, what happened? Miraculously, this was the number we came up with right here. Okay? Let me go too far, right? All right, now, we have 217,236 VA. Now, how do we apply that? Now that we have the total, we have all this calculated value, all right? Now what do? We get to use the table. It's easy at this point, right? Let's go to the table. Let's go to the NEC. All right, let's go back to the optional method. And there are people out there that say, I'm confused, Paul, you talk too much, or you go too many details, or you drag it out, or you put too many examples in there. I will remind you that the door's to the left. Make sure you shut it on the way out, and good luck. All right, so we're back at 220.84. All right, so what we've done is we've done all these pieces here. Everything has been done in C, right? So beginning of this tells us that this is the calculated load, okay, to which the demand factor at table 220.84 can be utilized. Now, here's another question that people ask me. Paul, if you're doing all that, is that not the connected load? No, let me explain. Connected load would be full face value. Anything that you're just taking full face value. The moment that you do some type of calculation to come up with the value, it's now a calculated load. But it's not fit in that perfect tidy box. Like you only have one connected load and you only have one calculated load. No, you might have multiple calculated loads, but the code will tell you what to do. For example, in this case, it says the calculated load in which a demand factor can be applied. So you have a calculated load that's going to be a value after a demand has been applied. And in this case, you have a calculated load before a demand is applied. But if it was a connected load, it would be the pure value without any calculations being done. Okay? And so just kind of get used to the terminology. Don't let that rattle around in your head and cause you confusion. Again, if there's some type of calc we're doing to something, then we're going to be trying to get to a calculated load, some calculated load value, okay? All right, so in this case, we're looking at it. Now, we're going to go to the table. All right, so here's the table that we're talking about. Now, how many units do we have? Now, this is based on a demand factor in percentage, okay? So it's not a KW, this is a percentage, okay? Should remind you right here, okay? Percentage. And we said we had 6 units. So 6 units, 4 to 6 units, we have 44% that we can apply. The 44. Make sense? Okay, 44%. All right, let's come back to the lesson. All right, actually, let's come back to the worksheet. Makes it easier because we're at the worksheet. All right, so we're going to see if we're still correct or Paul put any other errors in there for you. Let's see. So we've got 217,236. Okay. Now, one error you see here is we're going to say, okay, what are we going to do with it? Well, you notice that this, I believe, looks like a plus symbol. I can't tell, but you know that that's not a plus. Okay. When you hear anybody say, Paul, that looks like a plus. Yeah. Okay. We know what we're supposed to do with it. We multiply it. All right. So 217,236 times 0.44 equals 95,583, okay? 0.8. So again, at this point, we're going to do what? We're going to round up So we're going to go to 95,584. I will remind you folks, if you want to use the 95,583.84, it's not going to change your answer. Okay. So you're going to, at some point, you're going to have to round it, whether you round it at the amps or you round it here. Just be very cognitive of a question on an exam that might want to know like a neutral conductor contribution. If it asks you what the value is for a neutral contribution, then you want to just give that value. You don't want to round that because that is the contribution, right? So if it's like 14.58, okay, of value, then you want to, and that's your contribution, you want to keep that value. And that's what the neutral contribution actually is. You don't round that up for the neutral. So you just submit 14.58. Makes sense? Now, other applications, hot conductors, service, go ahead and do the rounding, 0.5 or greater, round up, okay? 0.4 or less, round off, okay? All right, just little things to tell you that you can get out of this tonight. All right, so that's gonna tell us we have 95,584. So we're gonna do what? Since this was a 12240 volt circuit, we're gonna do what? We're gonna take that 95,584. We're gonna divide that by what? 240. What is that gonna give us? All right, well, let's go down and see what it's gonna give us. It's gonna give us 398.26666. Well, now we're most certainly working in amps, so we're going to drop it off and we're just going to keep the 398. Okay, it's not going to make us a difference anyway. Okay, another tip on an exam: if your answer for some reason doesn't come out exact, and you're in an exam and you're in a time crunch and it's not exact, then pick the best, closest possible answer to what you have. Okay. Don't leave it blank. Don't end up spending 10 minutes on it. All right. If you did it, you might have left out the 25% in a standard calc. You might have left out one little piece, but it's not, generally, it's not going to make that big a difference. Choose the best plausible answer. Okay. So again, if you get in a bind or you get stuck on something like an exam, that's the kind of thing that you want to kind of keep in mind. Okay. All right. Let's see where we're at. All right, so we've got it. And so then that tells us that it is the minimum amperes, okay, is 398, all right? So what does the overcurrent device need to be? Okay, well, does 398 amps correspond to a standard overcurrent device, okay? Right? Does it? Is it standard? I don't know. Let's go to the code. So where do we go in the code to find the size of overcurrent protected devices? Right? Well, we're going to go to 240.6a. Okay? And we're going to go there and see what our choices are. Okay? And Alberto says, no, it's not the standard. There you go. So 240.6. And here's a little table. And we're looking to see if 398 is a standard size. Alberto says no. NR says absolutely not. So we have a 350, but we don't have a 398. So we're going to go up to the next standard size. All right. And in this case, it's a 400. So over on our lesson, the question here for number 19, and I can't edit this because this is just out of the course. It's not the actual sheet. All right, so the answer to number 19 is going to be 400. Does this make sense? Okay, now, next question. We got all the math now. We got all the numbers. It should be easy at this point, right? The next question is, what is the minimum size THWN copper ungrounded conductor that can be installed? Do not parallel the installation. Okay. So we're not paralleling the installation. So where do we go? What value do we use to determine the size of the conductor? Well, the load was 398 amps, right? I mean, that's what we calculated out, the load, and our conductors have to be sized to what? At least handle the load, right? Okay, So we're going to go to the code. And it says THWN, right? So that tells you that you're going to be in the 75-degree column. Also, it's under over 100 amps. So you know that 110.14C1 is going to be for C1B is going to be, I believe, tell you, or C1, is it B? Let's go to the code. I get those so screwed up here. So let's go to the NEC while we're here in this journey. Let's go look and see another reason why we're going to be at 75, because I get this question an awful lot. So we're going to do it while we're here. So here's 14, here's C. So C1A, okay? But in our case, it is over 100 amps, so we're doing C1B. And that's why we're going to do 75 degrees C, and that's why we're in the 75 degree C ampacity. Look at that. Y'all are already on board. Look at that. Jose, NR, already jumping on it. Jesse already jumped on it. All right, so in our case, THWN, that's good for 75. It's not good for 90, okay? So, well, 420 amps, right? Okay, yeah, well, let's go look. Let's go look. So we're already in the code. So we're going to go to 310.16. Because we got some numbers up on the screen. Let's go to 310.16. Because we have a max here on the screen too. So let's go here. All right, here we go. So this is 310.16. We can go on and go down here and say, okay, we need a conductor that's good for 398 amps. So let's go here. So this is the 75 degree column right here, guys. So so you know, we're right here. Oh, and by the way, you see here, it says THWN in here, right? So that's another dead giveaway. Also, if you want to learn all about conductors and wet, dry, what the ratings are, what this stuff means, you want to make sure that in the 2023 code and in the 2020 code that you go to 310.4. If you're in the 2017 code, you want to go to 310.104, and you have a nifty little table there. Gives you a lot of information about something, whether it's wet or dry or damp use and temperature ratings and all that kind of stuff. So that's just great to know. And if you ever need that. All right, so there's only one H, so that means it's 75. It is wet location. All that's good, but it's under 75. Okay. All right, let's go down. So we need 398. Y'all have already told me it's 600. Okay. So let's see here. I'm going to go to the left so I can see. So we all know that it's this column here, right? So here's a 600. So 380. Oh, that sucks. That ain't going to work, right? And then we've got the 600 that's good for 420. Bingo. Very good. NE or NR. Is that NR? It's NR. All right. So it's good for 420. So perfectly acceptable to handle the load that we have. Right. So back to the lesson. All right. So again, in our case, we just need to handle 398. Perfectly fine. It handles 420 and it's perfectly okay. So this conductor right here would be a 600 kc mil. Make sense? Boom. All right. So that part is easy, and we will skip 21 and do that in a second. But since we already know the values for 19 and 20, we're going and solve 22 because we're already here. Now the 22 is wanting to know what's the acceptable size copper grounding electrode conductor. Okay. I didn't tell you the type of electrode, did I? I didn't tell you it was a ground rod. I didn't tell you it was a pipe or a plate or a ring or a concrete case electrode. Hell, I didn't even tell you it was a water pipe ground. I didn't tell you any of that. When the exam question doesn't tell you what the electrode is, then you always want to go to the table, 250.66. Okay? Now, if it's a rod, pipe, or plate, if it's a concrete encased electrode, many people refer to as a UFER, or if it's a ground ring, then you want to go to 250.66 A, B, or C. Okay? But when I don't tell you what it is, you want to go where? To the table, 250.66. So we're going to do that and work that out. And you folks are on the ball. Look at everybody's throwing in these numbers. So I can tell y'all have got your code book, except for probably Jesse, who never has his code book with him. All right, so let's go to 250. 66. And it's right here. All right, y'all are familiar with this table. All right, and so we already told you it was copper, so easy peasy. Now, notice this table says size is the largest ungrounded conductor. In this case, it told us not to parallel it. That's why we came up with a 600 kc mill, okay? All right, makes sense? If we had paralleled it, then that's what this part means. So you just would have add the two together. Like if it was two sets of 350s, then you only take one of the phases when you're doing this. So it would be 350 in one of the raceways and 350 in the other raceway. That would have been 700 kc mil altogether. And that's where you would have come down here over 6 through 1100, right? But ours, it was just one conductor, and that's awful big. So I'm just between me and you. I'm probably never going to pull 600s. I would be paralleling. But the question said, do not parallel, okay? So don't parallel. So in our case here, it was 600. So we're not over 600. We are over 350 through 600. And that means it would be a 1/0 copper. And you all nailed that. Everybody in there was posting boom, 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 boom. All right? So, okay, makes sense. It's actually, that's over 350 through 600. But your eyes, my eyes are bad, but I believe it says over 350. But you got it. Same concept. All right, so let's come back to the lesson. All right. So 22 right here would be 1/0. Okay? So it'll be put a 1/0 in there, right? Okay. So that's how we fit this. Now, let's tackle this neutral. Now, here's the good news. I'm going to show you the form based on all the information that we already had, and I want to show you why it's so important to understand how to do the standard method. And we did that last session, so make sure you go back and watch it. So I am going to show you how you do that, and we're going to do the neutral for that, and I will show you why it's so simple. But you still have to do it, okay? All right, let's go back to the... All right, so here it is, all right? Now let me shift it a little bit so that you get everything on the screen, because remember I moved it earlier, and I want to go on and get it back so you can see everything. So again, man, I do these things on the fly, so be patient with me. And let's get this thing back out here. All right, and let me get it to where y'all folks can see a little bit. All right. Oh yeah, for aluminum, if you do aluminum. We're not doing aluminum because ours was what? Copper. All right. Oh, and that's another good point, though. On an exam, always, people say, you don't assume. Well, yeah, this you do. Always assume copper unless they state otherwise, okay? Now, a lot of the exams around the country will tell you all this up front, right? You go sit down and you're getting all situated for the exam and everything, and they'll do that for you, okay? They will make sure you understand that it's all based on copper, all those type of things. Or they'll say not to use exceptions, or if they don't say you can't use exceptions, then you use the exceptions, all those type of things, okay? So make sure you do take the time when you sit for your exam. For those that are taking an exam, make sure you just take the time to sit and read all of it. They'll ask you questions like, what color is the sky? Blue, red, pink, yellow, obviously blue. But just get familiar with the testing, okay? And get familiar with the timer and all that type of stuff. Make sure you're just familiar with all of that so you don't feel the stress during the exam. Okay, let's go back. So what you see on the screen now, folks, is that same calculation. It's very much like what we did last week, or I guess it wasn't last week, week before last. Make sure you go watch that. We do the standard method, totally different calc, but it's the standard method. In that scenario, we had to work each piece out. Okay, so we're going to do it right here. So we're going to do this one quickly because I don't want to repeat what we did last week. I want you to go watch it. But here's what's important. The first part in your form, number 1, number 2, number 3, That is the same way you would do it for the standard method. It's still 3 VA per square foot. It's given to us in 220.14J. So it's 3 times 1350, still 6 units. That didn't change. So it's 3 times 1350 times 6. That's 24,300. Don't trust me. I might have thrown something in here for you. I'm not going to say. Let's see if y'all can find it, if it is. So we'll do 3 times 1350 times 6 is 24,300. We all agree? Right. Minimum of 2 small appliance brand circuits. That's the same as it was before. Remember, these are the same numbers. So it's 1,500 times 2 times 6. That should be 18,000. So 1,500 times 2 times 6. That's correct. Next is 1,500 times 1 laundry. And there's 6 of them, 6 units. So that's 1,500 times 6. Okay, so it's 1,500 times 6. That's 9,000. Okay, so that's correct. Now, here's where it's different than the optional. And remember, we're just doing the neutral, right? That's all we're doing, the neutral contributions. All of those circuits that we just talked about are a neutral contribution, right? They're all just 120 volt loads, 120 volt lighting, 120 volt receptacles, small appliance. So obviously, that's 2 wire systems. They all have a neutral. So we got to count those. Next, you go down and say, guess what? I get to apply, even to the neutral, I get to apply the demand factors in 220.42 for dwelling units, right? So what does that say? That says the first 3,000 at what? 100%. The next 117,000 at what? 35%. And the value over 120 at 25%. Now, don't get confused when I say the first 3,000 at 100% and the next 117. The way the code reads it is 0 to 3,000 at 100, 3,001 to 120 at 35%. Well, y'all know that when I say the first 3,000 at 100 and the next 117, that 117 plus 3 is 120. It's just an easier way to say it. I like to be redundant, but I want to make sure you're all clear when I say stuff like that. All right. So in our case, that's how we're going to apply it. So this is what this form is automatically going to do for you and teach you to do this. All right. So we get to apply the demand factors even to the neutral, right, in a standard method. So let's add these numbers up before. So we add up 1, 2, and 3. So 24,300. See if we're correct here. 18,000 plus 9,000. That is 51,300. So that's been carried over to right here. Okay, so that's carried over right there. All right, so we're good. Now we get to apply the demand factors in table 220.42. And if you're not there, make sure you turn your code book and look at the table so you can kind of get what we're doing here. All right, so we're going to take 3,000 away from that because, again, the first 3,000 has to be at 100 anyway. So we might as well take that away so we have something left to work in, okay? All right? Absolutely. There are examples also if you ever get in a pinch and you're on an exam. That's a great thing to remind people, folks, is Jesse brought it up, and I'll expand on it. Anytime you're trying to do a load calc and you get confused, the Annex D in the back of the book, the informative annex, is examples. They can really help you jog your memory. Just go back there. They have some motor examples. They have single family dwelling examples. They have multifamily examples. They have other examples. If you need to jog the memory, even in the real world, if you're out in the field and you've got the code book and you're getting that brain fog, you haven't had your whatever that stuff that you can take to help clear the brain. In Colorado, they'd call it marijuana, but everywhere else that wouldn't be what it would be. Then what you're going to do is you go look at those examples and it might jog your memory, okay? And that's important because sometimes we all live in a brain fog, that type of thing, okay? All right, so anyway, good point, Jesse. So anyway, back to our lesson. So 51,300, take 3,000 away. Let's make sure we're right on that. And Alberto recognized that was probably a Grundberg reference because he's in Colorado. And dude, if you've seen some of his videos, dude, he's toking it up. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, Jay. It's evident. I've seen them. Anyway, all right. So, and I've seen you dance. There's no way anybody can dance like that unless they're totally high. I'm just saying. All right. So, 48,300 because we took the 3,000 away. Now, is that more than 117,000? Absolutely not. So that's part of that amount that we're going to use with the 35%. So in this little form, you're going to drop it down. So it says if it isn't, okay, if it is 117,000 or less, then go right here to 8. And that's where we're going to put this value in right here. And we're going to multiply that by 35% because that's the value that we can multiply by 35%. We still got that 3,000 at 100% we got to add back later. But we're now working with this value. All right, so 48,300, okay, times 0.35 is going to give us 16,950. That's what we got right there. See it? All right, so that's what we see right here. Now, in our form, we're going to drop that down right here because this says from line 8, and that's where we put the 16,905. Well, here's that 3,000 that we took at 100%. We got to add that back, right? So, makes sense. So, we're going to do that 16,905 plus 3,000. And that is going to be 19,905. Okay? So, that's what we get on line 9 right here. Okay? So, that's what we've got. All right, so now we're going to move next. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is, remember all those appliances? We had what? We had the dishwasher, we had the electric clothes dryer. We had the dishwasher, we had the water heater. What else did we have? That's it, right? Did we have any, let's see here. We had a disposer, and I'm trying to, hold on. Let's see where, oops. Sorry about that, I will go back. What do we have? We had the water heater, we had the dishwasher, but the water heater's 240. We can't use it, right? Can't use it. We had the dishwasher, that's a 120 volt load, right? So that's a neutral, so definitely you have to use that. And then we had the in-sink waste disposers. That's a 115 volt load, right? So that is a neutral. And we've got to remember something. How many units do we still have? 6 units. Don't lose sight on that. We still have 6 units. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take that dishwasher. Let's go back real quick to the lesson. We're going to go here, and we got the dishwasher. And that is 1,200 times 6. So that's 7,200 because there's 6 of them. Write that down, 7,200. And then we have the in-sink waste disposer, which I believe was 828 times 6. And that was 4,968. Y'all remember? Right? All right, we're going to add those to our little sheet here. So there's where we put the values for the dishwasher. That's the 7,200, because remember, we have 6 of them. And here is our 4,968. We had 6 of those as well. Okay, now, here's the beautiful thing again. For those that were here when we did the standard method, when we have how many? 4 or more appliances, we get to do what? We get to apply 75% demand to that. Yes, it also applies to the neutral. Why shouldn't it? Okay, so we're going to take that 7,200 plus the 4,968, and that gives me 12,168. Okay, that's what this number is right here. Okay, and now we're going to multiply that by 75% because 220.53, remember, we're doing a standard method. Even though it's the neutral, we're still under the standard method. We get to apply the 75%, right? So I take that 12,168 times what? 0.75. And that gives me 9,126. And that's why we got this value right here, okay? Makes sense so far? Percolating along? Pretty simple. All right, let's go to the next thing. All right, let's talk about those clothes dryers. Okay, so here's the thing about the clothes dryer. This is a standard method. So we get to use all of the benefits of the standard method. We get to apply the demand factors to those dryers under 220.54, and we still get to apply the 70% to that under 220.61b1. It's a beautiful thing. So let's do that. So here's the one thing to remember, right? There you go. Here's the one thing to remember. You took it out of my mouth there, Alberto, is when we go back to the lesson, now we've got that clothes dryer that was nameplate of 4, right? Now we have to follow the rules in 220.54. And the 220.54 says what? It says that we have to be at 5,000 or the nameplate, whichever is greater. Don't forget that, because now we're back over at the standard method again. So we're going to use 5,000 for every one of those clothes dryers, okay? And if you don't believe me, go look, while I'm doing this, go look at 220.54 and see what it says, all right? And we're going to go there in a minute because we got to get some numbers. All right, let's go back here and look at our form here. All right, so our form here says that the dryer amount should be 15,750. So we're going to figure out how we work that out. So we're going to go to the NEC. Remember, there's 6 of these. All right, so we're going to go to 220.54. All right, and here's where you see the value. It says right here, it says the load for household electric dryers in dwelling units, you see the plural S, so it most certainly applies to multifamilies, shall be either 5,000 watts or VA, and y'all know how I love VA, or the nameplate rating, whichever is larger, okay, for each dryer served, right? So instead of that 4, we're going to use 5. Now, how many dryers do we have? Well, if we only had 4, then we would have to take them at the 5,000, and that would be it, and that's what we would add. But here we have 6 of them. So we get to apply a demand factor of 75%. So we're going to take the 5,000 for each dryer. We're going to multiply that by what? 6. So 5,000 times 6, because we got, how many do we have? We have 6 of them. Then we're going to take that value, which happens to be 30,000, okay? And we're going to take that value and we're going to multiply that by 0.75. And that gives me 22,500. Okay, you see that? That's the value that we're going to apply the 70% to. It's a beautiful thing, right? Where do you get the 70%? It's in 220.61b1. It allows us to do that. So we're going to take that 22,500 and we're going to multiply that by 0.70, and that is 15,750 right there. And that's where we get the value on this form. So that's what this is right here, right there. I'm going to highlight it for you. There, okay? That makes sense? All right. Now that you did that, you ought to know how to do the range application here. Let's see how this works for the household cooking appliances on this standard method. Okay? All right, so let's go look. So how many do we have? We have 6. Now, in our calculation, let's go to the NEC. Oh, no, let's go to the lesson. Yeah, so in our lesson, we have 10.6 kW range, okay? All right, now, it's not over 12. Okay. Let's see. Jesse says you're getting 16,875. Not sure where you're getting that, Jesse. It's probably in how you're hitting the calculator. So let me do this again. 5,000 times 6 is 30. First, take that 30, multiply that by 0.75. That's the 22,500. I know what you're doing, Jesse. You're stringing them along in your calculation. No, you need to get a value first before you apply the 70% to it. All right, so it's 22,500. Then you multiply that by 0.70, and that's how you get 15,750. Okay, yeah. Don't accumulate this one. You need to find the value for the dryers first before you then apply the 70% in 220.61. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. All right, so now, where was I? Oh, ranges. All right, so let's go to the code. We know that it's 10.6 kW. All right, so let's go to the NEC. All right, so we're going to go under ranges. All right, so the ranges, in our case, they're all over 8 3/4. So we already know that we're not going to be using column A. We're not going to be using column B. We're going to be firmly planted in column C. Okay, so we're going to go right over here to column C. Now, it says not over 12, but obviously column B stops at 8 3/4, right? Okay. All right, so in this scenario here, we're going to be looking at it. Okay, we want to go through 6. So in our case here, it's pretty simple. We don't use note 3, and it says right up here, use column C in all cases unless note 3 applies. Nothing applies to note 3. Okay, so we're in C. So how many units do we have? We've got, this is for 1, this is for 2, this is for 3, this is for 4, this is for 5, this is for 6, 21. Let's verify, go to the left here. There it is, 6 of them. Okay, that's because we have 6 of them. So we're going to be using 21,000 for this. So 21,000 is going to be our value. Now, we're doing the neutral. So we're going to take that 21,000, which is the demand value from the table, and we're going to multiply that by 0.70. And what does that give us? 14,700. That is our neutral, right? So let's go to the form. Again, you have any questions, guys, please speak up and I'll explain it to you. For those that are visiting that don't know and they think I'm dragging this out, then you don't really understand how I teach. And my students understand that we're going to be redundant. I'm going to discuss things over and over. I'm going to give you little tips. I'm going to mislead you to see if anybody calls something out. And then I'm going to bring it back around. If that teaching style confuses you, then I'm going to tell you right now, please don't invest in my course. Do not invest in me. Go out and find your own way. There's plenty of other educators out there. I have a unique style, and when I do these live sessions, I go all over the place because I have the worst case of attention deficit disorder. I go from one thing, I will create a form and put wrong information on it to see if you find it. I will come back to it. I will jump around. I will do anything. If it's not for you, then my course is not for you. All right? All right, so this is where we got 14,700. All right, again, we're using column C for 6 of them. That's 21,000 or 21 kW, right? And now we're going to go to where? We're going to go to 220.61b, and that's where we get to apply the 70% demand value. Makes sense? I hope so. Should make sense. Okay. All right. So that's this one here. So let's go on and do this here. All right. There. All right. Okay. So let's go a little further. So what's next? All right. So in our neutral calculations, we got to get down next to the heating and air conditioning. All right. So remember the values in this heating and air conditioning. This is going to be pretty cool, right? So let's see if this number's right. Let's go to the lesson. Y'all might have already done this. We're only looking for neutral loads. That's it. Just the neutral loads. All right, so in this case, the heat is all out. That's 240 volt loads. That's all out. Only one that's in play is the air handler, right? And the condensing fan. That's it. That's the only thing that's in play. But remember how many units we have. We still have 6 different units. Don't forget that. Don't get lost in it that you forget that we have 6 units. All right, so remember what we did earlier? That 3rd horsepower air handler is 828, and that condensing fan was 506. So we're going to do 828 plus 506. That is 1,334. How many units do we have? 6 units. So then multiply that by 6, and that is 8,004. Okay, so let's go back to the lesson. All right, 8,004 right here. There you go. So that's where that comes from. Okay. Now, again, this should be old hat for you if you came to our last session. So I get it. We already did this before, and I'm just kind of rehashing it again. But I just want to, we want to make sure that you're clear on it. So I don't mind going over it again. All right. So the next thing we have to do, our next logical step at this point is we took care of the AC and the heat loads for neutrals. We took care of the appliance loads for neutrals. We got all of the things for the small appliance, and we took care of everything. We even applied demand factors. What's left? Well, just like for the standard method for the hot conductors, we have to find the largest motor in this. We have to meet 220.50. I got to find what's the largest motor in here and get that is a neutral load motor. Neutral load motor. Absolutely. Good job, Jesse. So what we're looking for is, of this, what is our largest motor? Okay, that is purely a motor. All right. Well, in this case, it's either the in-sink waste disposer or the air handler motor. Okay, they're both 1/3 horsepower, right? So pick your poison. So I'm just going to take one of them. Okay, and so 828 is what we're going to use. That's the largest motor, right? And we're doing that at 820. Now, remember, all we're trying to do here is gather that extra 25%. Remember, how many of you are confused at this 25%? Raise your hand. I'm just saying. If you're confused, it's because just like with 430.24, if you're in commercial buildings or whatever, you don't take every motor at 125%. You take the largest motor at 125%, and then the sum of all the other motors. You with me? So the same here. I might have six units, right? And each one of them obviously have a motor, but I only need to take one of the motors at 125%. Now, since I've already taken the air handler into our equation for this neutral, that's part of that 804 or 8004, I only need to try to capture that 25%. That's what 220.50 is saying without it actually saying it, because it gives you references to multiple motors, and you just got to understand that's where that additional 25% comes from. Because we've already taken all these motors at 100%, we just need to follow the code and find that additional missing 25%. That's all we're looking for here. So that 828 times 0.25 is 207. That's the only amount we want. That's the 25%. That's the extra amount that was missing, right? So we add that to the equation. So there you go. There's your 207. Add it. Now, let's add all of these up that we see on the screen and see what we get. So we've got 19,905 plus 9126 plus 15,750 plus 14,700 plus 8,004 plus 207. That equals 67,692. See that? Let's see if that's what we got. So let's go on down. And there we go. 67,692. And then, as you would normally, you're going to divide that by 240, because that's what we're working with. Remember, it was a 120, 240 volt application. So we're going to do 67,692. We're going to divide that by 240, and that equals what? 282.05. See that? There. Boom. Got it? All right. So with that said, we're like, okay, that's our answer. So that's our neutral's minimum amperes. Now, here's where I want to bring up the importance of understanding the difference. Again, I told you I would. The difference between the 2020 and the 2023. How much of that neutral load is over? Okay. No, I'm not going to round that to 68,000. Okay. No, I'm going to take the full value. Okay. I'm going to keep the full value, and we're working in VA. I'm not going to round that up. Now, if you did round it up, I don't know that it would make a difference for you, but no, we're not going to round this. Okay, this is 67,692 VA. This is a location where you're not going to do the rounding. You take the full amount. So 67. So if I did 68, just for craps and giggles, to see if it changes your value any for exam purposes, if you were to do that, 68,000 divided by 240 is 283. So it does change it by 1 amp, because that'd be 283.3. You're going to drop the 0.3. It's not going to make a difference in your calculation, okay? But I would not round it. That's another tip for people. Where do you round and where you don't round? I do not round VAs like that when it comes down to the final number, 67,692. That's not where I typically would round at, okay? I usually would round in amps when I'm working with amps, but that only makes a difference of 1 amp, so hardly is going to make a difference in your calculation, I'm sure. Now, a good point to make here is if you did round it and now your number doesn't match what's on the exam, then you're really only going to be about 1 amp off. And if none of the answers match, then pick the best possible answer. Make sense? I don't want you to get dwelling into it and say, oh, Jesus, I must have done something wrong. If it's only 1 amp off, then choose the best possible answer, okay? That's the best way to tackle it. But when I round, I don't round neutrals. And so this is a neutral calculation. So that's another reason that I don't round the neutral when it comes to VA values. I don't. Now, when it comes to the end amp value, I typically wouldn't round up. I drop off. Okay. So in this case, I'm dropping off. All right. It shouldn't make you any big a difference how you want to do it. Now, to be perfectly clear, 220.5 tells you that you can only round amps. So you typically, I tell most people, don't round. I won't mark it wrong most of the time, except for neutral. For a branch circuit, neutral contribution for neutral, if it says I want the pure contribution, then I don't like you to round. But any other time, I don't really care if you round. It shouldn't change anything, okay? So, yep, some people would round to the 3rd decimal. That works for me, okay? All right, so anyway, where was I? Okay, so 282, 283 is not going to change our conductor size in this case, but let's stick with it. So we'll say 282, all right? That's your neutral. Now, back to what I was talking about. If you're in the 2020 edition of the National Electrical Code, folks, we have already taken the 70% here. You with me? This is important. Remember I talked about it when I started tonight. If you're in the 2020 edition, then you're going to take the full 282 and you're going to go find the proper size conductor. So we're going to do that. I need a conductor, and it's still 75 degree. It's still THWN, right? So I got to find a conductor that's good for 282 amps under the 75 degree column. So let's go do that. Okay, let's keep on track here. So I'm going to go here. So now I've already done, I'm going to go to 31016. Okay. Uh-oh, look, Jesse's already done it. So let's go and look here. So I'm going to go to 31016. I'm sure others are going to chime in here in a minute. Okay. So let's see here. So here's 31016 right here. And I'm under the 75. Make sure you can see it. And I need a conductor that's good for 282. So let's go down. And let's see here. Let's see, which column right here? This is the column right here. So I want to make sure my mouse stays under this column. And I need 282. All right, so here's 285. All right, so either way, it would have made a difference for us. 1 amp didn't make a difference, okay? All right, Alberto's confused with the 25% again. I will go back because everybody looks for the word 25, so I'll explain it again. All right, so 300 kc mil, good for 285. So our answer should be, okay, this is under the 2020 edition now of the NEC. I want you to watch me here. Then here we go. There you go. 300 kc mil. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. You do it, move on your way. So on our lesson, Under the 2020 edition, right here under 21, right? Then it would be 300 kc mil. Now, remember what I said at the beginning? They made a change in they made a change in 220.61b, and they changed it and changed the or to an and, okay? Paul, your bigger monitors to look at, your squinting hurts my eyes. Hey, I wish I could show you. I have 6 feet of monitor, 2 feet high. I am just blind, bro. I've got diabetes. These are not my new glasses. My new glasses were damaged, so I had to go to an old repair. But everybody that knows me knows I still can't see the screen. So the fact that you can actually see me squinting means I got a pretty good camera here, unless it's that freaking obvious, right? Right? All right. Oh, look, Jose's already done it here. All right. So in our case, what are we going to do under the 2023? Because under the 2023, there's an and in there. So now I get to take that same value, that 282, and what do I get to do? The first 200 at 100%, and the value over that at 70%. So that's 82, right? So 82 times 0.70, that is 57.4. Add the 200 back to it, because that was first 200 to 100%. Okay, and if you don't know what I'm saying, go read 220.61b. And if you're in the 2020, you'll see it says or. That's the one we just did. Now we're looking at 2023, and there's an and in there. I get to apply both. Okay, big difference in the 2023. All right, so that'd be 57.4 plus 200. That is 257.4. Okay, so I need a conductor that's at least good for 257.4. All right, so we're gonna go to the code and find it. And I think it was already found for us. I think Jose found it. So let's see here. Let's go down here, and we're in 310.16 right here. Okay, so that's what it is. And we're gonna go down, and we're under the 75. And I need a conductor that's good for 257.4. So here's 255. Okay. And I think, oops, he made a mistake. That's why it's so important to check. We do it. And on an exam, it can happen just that quick. All right, so down here, what does it look like? Ooh, it's still got to be 300. There is an example where it didn't matter whether it was a 2020 or the 2023. But I think it is important, folks, because don't you think that people might write an exam where it's right there on the cusp? Maybe, okay? But anyway, great example. But just remember, 2020, you can apply the 70% to the ranges and dryers, but you can also, in the standard method now, but you also, in the 2023, you get to apply both of those for the neutral reduction. It's a beautiful thing, okay? That's good trivia tomorrow at work. Ask people, do they know that, okay? All right, anyway, so in our case, we got our answers. We answered 19 through 22. Hopefully you got something out of that. And so let's go back to some chatting real quick. Dude, that's a lot. If you stuck with me through all of that, in all of my examples and me trying to fool you on the 120 to prove a point that you need to use whatever they give you, if you survived all that, and then you look, and we went through it, and we altered the document, and then we changed the document and moved everything around. If you stayed for all that, you're a trooper, because that's a lot of information. And I can guarantee you that if you take this at trade school, all of this that we covered tonight in a little over 2 hours, it would probably have been a week long. Somebody out there give me a hell yeah. If you've been to trade school or you went to training, all of the stuff that we just covered in 2 hours probably gets drawn out over a week. Jesse, am I wrong? Drawn out over a long period of time to teach you each piece. We tried to do this. I tried to give you some examples. I tried to give you some insight on when to look at the question and use what they give you. We gave you some examples. We went all over the spectrum in 2 hours. And that's just the optional method. Now, there's people out there that says, Paul, you just took too long. I would have done this in 2 seconds, 3 minutes. Then that's just not how I teach. I'm sorry. I have to be drawn out, right? I have to be convoluted. I have to test you. I have to do all this. That's what I do. It's not like TikTok. I hate TikTok. I still post stuff on TikTok. And behind the scenes, everybody thinks I'm mad and I act like I'm mad, like Angry Sparky. All those people think I'm mad. I'm actually laughing my ass off behind the scenes, especially at the comments. But it does get frustrating. And I'm just trying to be the Angry Sparky 2.0. I don't want to take his place, but I'm just saying. Anyway, hopefully you got something out of the night and you enjoy these Wednesday nights. So you feel like you have 1% of my knowledge. Oh no, you have a lot more than that, my friend. I guarantee you. When I do this stuff like this tonight, and I'm trying to trick you or trying to say something and get you to, y'all jumped right on. Y'all were right on it. You were right on it. So don't cut yourself short. I'm always going to try to trick you in these lessons. Okay, that's what this is about. Okay, this isn't for YouTube. This isn't pre-recorded. This is live. Okay, now 2017, Richard. Good question. So in the 2017, it's the same way it was in the 2020, okay? And I'll show you that. Let's go look at it because I know you're in the 2017. So when it comes to that statement about using the neutral and 70% for both, it's the same way in the 2017 as it is in the 2020. It got changed in the 2023. So it's the same when it comes to the neutral for that, right? No changes involved in that. So I do want to show you that because you are in the 2017. So let's do that. I just want to prove it to you. That way you feel comfortable. Is we go look at the 2017 and I'll go to 2020. Oh, by the way, folks, anybody wants to know what we're using? I'm using Link. Okay, you should get it. Can't use it on an exam, but it's great to give it if you're out in the field, have it in your pocket. It's the cheapest investment you'll make. All right, so where the hell was I talking about? Oh, 220. Told you I got ADD, buddy. And this is for Jesse. All right, so let's see here. Let's see, 220.61. All right. Okay, so here you go, Richard. Here you go. So see right here, it still says or. So if you happen to be using the 70% for the ranges and dryers, then you can't use for the portion over 200. Now that's usually not going to come into play. I mean, that's pretty big neutral, okay? And it would only come into play in a multifamily dwelling. It would never come into play for a single family. You're never going to have that much neutral load. Even if it's a 400 amp service, 600 amp service, you're never going to have that much neutral load. So that's the only time it would ever come into play. One other point that I'll make up to you, no earbuds. Oh, so the fool's on me. The other thing I'll remind you, when you're doing a non-dwelling calculation, a commercial building, right? And that has neutral loads, well, they're not going to have ranges and dryers. So you always will get to use it. Whether you're in the 2017, the 2020, or the 2023, you will always get to use B2 for the value that's over 200 amps of neutral, okay? Because you're not using B1 because you got no ranges. You got no dryers. Makes sense? So for you commercial guys, you might not have known this. It only really is going to rear its head in a multifamily application. So that's why I wanted to bring it to you and explain it, because it's really probably something you're only going to run into on an exam. All right. Okay. Anybody got any questions on anything? Oh, the 120%. Let me make sure I go back and do that. All right. So real quick, if you got any questions, guys, put them in the chat. Okay. And I will try to answer them. But let me go back so I can explain this to Alberto. So look, Alberto, so the code is not going to say it. And I want to show you right here. All right, see this right here? It says for motors. And our dwelling had motors, did it not? Yeah, it did. Okay. It says motor loads shall be calculated in accordance with 430.24. Now, these other ones are great. And of course, the 440.6 also is making sure it picks up that the refrigerator, her hermetic refrigerant motor, which is still a motor, and it tells you to take it at 125%, right? Well, the easiest one for me to explain this to you is to look at 430.24, okay? 430.24 says what? Okay, ready? And this, I think, again, this is for Alberto. It says you take 125% of the full load current of the largest rated motor, and then the sum of the full load current ratings of all the other motors. Does that make sense? So, Alberto, if you were on a commercial job and you had a large motor and you had a bunch of other motors, right? And they were all connected to the same A, B, and C, or A and B, whatever their configuration is, then you would only take one of those motors at 125% FLC, of the FLC, but then you would take all the other ones at purely just their amp rating, right? Agreed? That's what it says, right? And this is what you use for multiple motors. We agree? Make sure you're with me, Alberto. Tell me, heck yeah, I agree with you. I understand. Let me know you understand. Because that's what it says here. Again, remember right there, it says take the largest motor at 125 and all the other motors at 100, right? Don't leave me hanging, Alberto. Don't leave me hanging. Let me know. Give me a thumbs up. Let me know you're tracking. Okay. Now, apply that to our dwellings we just did. What's the difference? We already took all of the motors into consideration, right? When we added them up at 100%, we took their name, we added them all up and did it, right? But we still have to take at least one of those motors based on 220.50. We still have to take at least one of those motors at 125%. Well, we already took it at 100. So the only thing left is to capture that additional 25%. That is why we take that largest motor and we multiply it by 25% because we just need that extra piece that's missing. That's it. Because we need to comply with 220.50. Does that make sense? So the easiest way I explain it to people is if it was a commercial building, you would take the largest motor and then the sum of all the other motors. Well, in a dwelling, it's the same thing. Since you already took the sum of all the motors, now you just have to find that largest motor and capture that last 25%. Now, many people would like that to say that here, but you got to remember that this isn't designed just for dwellings. That's why it doesn't say that way in 220.50. It's motors in general. So that's why it makes reference to 430.24 and all the other ones, because it needs to be used for commercial and for dwelling applications. You just have to get used to realizing that a motor's a motor. Whether it's in a commercial building or it's being used in a dwelling, I need to take all of the motors. One of them, I got to take at 125%, and the sum of the others is 100%, right? So that's why we went hunting for that last 25%. Make sense? Give me a hell yeah if it makes sense. All right. Folks, y'all are troopers. Y'all held in there. I know many of my students missed the Wednesday night, that type of thing. But again, this is open to the public. I fully understand that there's people out there who watch this who don't understand my teaching style. They won't get it, and that's okay, because I don't care about anybody else. But who I do care about is you, the student. So yes, I might weave you on this journey, but I hope you come out the other side knowing something a little bit better. And that's why I'm redundant. Answer your question. Alberto, you says, I'm on the 2017, get it ready for the master's exam. You guys don't have anything about business and law in your Fast Trax system. No, we do not teach, we do not do contractor's licensing, okay? We do electricians. We don't get into that. Now, on our website, though, we do have partnerships. So, for example, let me show you. It's not in our Fast Trax because I'm a code guy. I'm not a law guy. I don't deal with laws, right? But I will show you, just to show you, in case some people don't know, all right? And usually those are so, direct that you'll have a little handout that covers that, right? Okay, and you'll have a little handout, and you don't need me to go over that. You just take the handout in there or the document in there, right? And it'll probably they'll just ask you about how often you have to renew your license, what's your penalty if you don't renew, what's the fine if you don't do this. That's really what you'll get for the law part. Other than that, the other business stuff, you really should learn that on your own. But let me take you somewhere real quick. For those that want to know, this is our website. And again, you can't see it all, so let me make sure I drop this down a little bit so you can see it. Bear with me here. I want to show you something. Okay, let me get it up here. Okay, so here's the website. Now, if you go under the courses right here, you come down and you're going to see something. See right here, it says business law and contractor courses. Click on it. Here's a list of partnerships we have. So we do have Florida business law, Alabama, Arkansas, California, Connecticut, Georgia, New Jersey, Tennessee, North Carolina business law, Ohio business law. We even have the 8-hour Virginia pre-licensing course for those that have to get a pre-licensing before you can become a contractor. These are partnership courses. They're not given by us, but they are in partnership. So they're here if you want to get them. Now, some of these might be just books, but other ones are actually courses. And they're not done by me because I am not a business law expert, okay? And I don't pretend to be. Hell, I have a hard enough time battling the lawyers that I battle now. Luckily, they don't know code, so I'm one up on them. But there you go, Ohio, right there, if you need it, right there, okay? All right, folks. I don't know what else I could give you tonight. Sorry for hanging in there. Sorry, Alberto and Jose and all for making you drag that on and about the different columns. I was going over why they weren't out of order, but I just wasn't ready to explain what I was doing, and that's my fault. I should have just said screw it and do it, but it doesn't matter. Hopefully you got something out of it. All right, folks? All right, and we're all learning together. So that's a beautiful thing. I love screwing with that form. So make sure you get the forms. If you're in the Fast Trax program, get the forms, okay? They really are great, and you should laminate them, really. Laminate those things. It's awesome. Laminate them, and then you can use a dry erase pen or whatever, and you can constantly use them every time. You don't have to print out a new one. It's great. They work wonderful. All right, folks? Hey, thank you all. Again, I am a bit redundant. Give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Okay, appreciate it. I will spend the amount of time it takes to make sure that you're successful. I will do what I can. You know where to reach me. You know how to find me. Okay, I'm not perfect. I don't know it all. And I have a short fuse sometimes. And I do have ADD, attention deficit disorder. Hey, I'm just like you, right? I'm a normal electrician, and I love this trade. I know you do too. All right, folks, God bless. Take care, and we will catch you next Wednesday. And I'm not going to tell you what the topic's going to be, but we're moving on still in calculations. Let me give you a hint. We did standard and optional single family, multifamily. We just done multifamily. What do you think we're going to calculate next? You guessed it. Non-dwelling applications. Crap. I just told you I wasn't going to tell you. You know what else I noticed? I noticed that Swartzy wasn't here tonight. Everybody, give a shout out to Swartzy. Hope he's okay. Hope you're doing okay, Swartzy. I didn't see you tonight. Hey, guys. David, I saw you sneak in there. Appreciate you. Anybody I leave out before I go? Seafram, good to see you. Glad you can make it. Did I miss anybody? Khalid, thanks for coming. Sorry if I missed you. NR, I got you in there. Who else did I miss? Richard, I got you in there. Jesse, he's not wearing his earbuds, but I'll give you that anyway. Let's see here. I guess I got everybody. Dude, y'all have no idea how I appreciate you. Share us around. Let other people know. If you got people at work that want to learn the code, I'm here. Get them in our program. let everybody be as successful. Jesse says I need bigger monitors, but y'all have no idea how big these monitors are, and I still can't see them. And the lights also. There's so much light coming down on me. I look my glasses. Look, I'm gonna look up at the light so y'all can see what's shining down on me. You ready? Look at that. There's one. There's one. There's one. There's one. It's a lot of light, so it means the glare means I can't see it very well. That's no excuse because I'm fat, old, got diabetes, and obviously I can't see. All right, I'm dragging it out. Good night, folks. God bless. Sleep well. Get out there tomorrow and make some money.